We can look at the words of the ulama and the historians. You can even study the writings of the philosophers and social scientists. Even in the West, when they talk about the events of Karbala and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But tonight I would like to actually go to Hussein ibn Ali himself and ask him, "Oh Hussein, why did you do this?" And what I'm going to present to you tonight is actually based on the written will of Hussein ibn Ali that he wrote before leaving Medina. This is a will unlike normal wills that we have, where we write about ourselves, our children, our wealth, house, things to be done after us. This is not a normal will. This is actually what I would call mission statement of Hussein ibn Ali. Why he is opposing Yazid, why he took this stand, to the extent of, willing to sacrifice everything. If you look at that will, let me very quickly read that for you, and then we'll go to the important parts of it and analyze that. Where he starts normally by Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. هذا ما عوصى به الحسين بن علي بن أبي طالب إلى أخيه محمد المعروف بابن الحنفية. This was a will that Hussein ibn Ali wrote addressing his brother Muhammad Hanafiya. Just keep in mind, Hussein is writing a will addressing his brother. And some people still have a problem with Muhammad Hanafiya. This is where you have to see that, I don't know, they read history or not. And then Hussein begins with the words where he says, إن الحسين يشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله جاء بالحق من عند الحق وأن الجنة والنار حق وأن الساعة آتية لا ريب فيها وأن الله يبعث من في القبور. I don't need to translate, I think everybody understands. This is the summary of the faith of Islam. Then he talks about his stand. Four sentences. Number one, وعني لم أخرج أشرا ولا بطرا ولا مفسدا ولا ظالما. He says, I have not taken this stand, because of arrogance or seeking, adventure or creating chaos in the society or being unfair to anyone. وإنما خرجت لطلب الإصلاح في أمة جدي. I have verily, taken the stand in order to seek reformation of the community of my grandfather. أريد أن أعمر بالمعروف وأنهى عن المنكر. I would like to exercise أمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر وأسير بسيرة جدي وأبي علي بن أبي طالب. And I would like to follow the same path of my grandfather and my father Ali bin Abi Talib. This is the main part of the wasiyyah, and inshallah, I would like to go through these four sentences for tonight's majlis. Salawat. The first statement there is a negation. Inni lam akhruj. Verily or surely I have not taken this stand for these reasons. This is very much like kalima, when we recite shahadatain, we start with negation. La ilah before we come to illallah. Hussein ibn Ali knew that the Umayyad government, Yazid and his people around, there are many scholars and historians and muhaddiseen who are in their pay. And they will ascribe different motives to Hussein ibn Ali for his stand. And so he basically starts with negation of that, right from the very beginning, that the propaganda machinery of Banu Umayyah will not work. He says, إِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ عَشِرًا وَلَا بَطِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا وَلَا ظَالِمًا. Four things he says, he denies. Number one, ashiran. Ashiran means basically seeking adventure. People want to go into unknown areas. They have that feeling sometimes. A person who goes with his own family, A person who takes even the infant child with him doesn't go seeking adventure of an unknown situation. وَلَا بَطِرًا. And I have not done this out of arrogance. It's not that I'm an arrogant person, trying to boost myself against others. وَلَا مُفْسِدًا. And by doing this, I do not intend to create chaos and facade in the society. وَلَا ظَالِمًا. And my stand here is not based on zulm and injustice or unfairness to anyone, not even to Yazid. So after negating all these four motivations which can be ascribed to him, because this is where, we hear sometimes, oh, Hussein did this because he wanted power. Somebody who wants power prepares an army. Doesn't go with his family members. He didn't prepare any army. Some of the people joined gradually, but he came as a family. And that clearly, negates this idea that he was seeking power at the time. And then we come to the second part, which is the most important, part of this will of Hussein ibn Ali. Salawat from him. Where he says, إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِسْلَامِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي. I have risen only to seek reformation in the community of my grandfather. The word إِنَّمَا in Arabic is used for hasr. Hasr means exclusivity. This is my one and only purpose. Nothing else. You cannot ascribe any other motive or purpose to my mission. إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ. I have taken the stand لِطَلَبِ الْإِسْلَامِ in order to seek reformation in the community of my grandfather. He has explained this in a different way in one of the khutbahs that he gave in Mecca, probably. We are not sure about it. And this is where he says, اللهم إنك تعلم أنه لم يكن ما كان منا تناصفا في سلطان ولا التماسا من فضول الحطام. Oh Allah, he is actually part of his dua in that khutbah where he says, oh Allah, you know that what I have done is not because I am seeking sultan and government and rule or power. ولا التماسا من فضول الحطام. And I am not seeking wealth. ولكن لنري معالم من ديني. I would like to expose and show the signs of your religion. وَنُظْهِرَ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي بِلَادِكَ. And so that I may bring about reformation in your land. وَيَعْمَلَ الْمَظْلُومِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ. So that those who are oppressed will be in peace and security. وَيُعْمَلُ بِفَرَائِضِكَ وَسُنَّتِكَ وَحَكَامِكَ. And so that your laws can be implemented. And this is where we see very clearly when he talks about Islam and reformation, this is what he means by it. This word Islam is very important. Normally we translate that in English as reforming. And when we talk about Islam and reforming, sometimes people might look at current history or the history just before our time and try to relate to that. For example, among the Christians, there was a Reformation movement. Protestant church basically is a result of that. And when you look at their idea of Reformation, this is where they look at the current trends and try to modify their values according to what is acceptable currently. So even laws will be changed, and that's where you see the tension between Catholics on one hand and the Protestants on the other hand. And so the question comes up. When Imam says, إِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِسْلَامِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّي, what is he talking about? Is he talking about, changing the ummah, reforming the ummah, or is he talking about reforming the deen of Rasulullah? This is important for our time also, because even among Muslims, not only Muslims, even among Shia thinkers these days, there is a trend of what is known as the reform movement. And this is where we have to realize. Always remember these words of Hussein ibn Ali. He says, I seek li talab. I am seeking al-islah, reformation, fi ummati jaddi, in the community of my grandfather. He doesn't say, I have done this li talab al-islah fi deen jaddi. He is not talking about changing the deen of his grandfather. He is saying that I am here to basically do the Islam and reform the Ummah. These days we have people, even among the Shias, unfortunately, minority, but they are there. They say, well, many of the ayat of Quran, especially when it comes to the issues of crime and punishment, hudud and tazirat, when they talk about this issue of the related to marriage laws and inheritance, they say these are all outdated. No more relevant for our time. Ayat of Quran. We are not even talking about fiqh here. And they would like to suspend those ayat, that they are no more relevant to our time. They say, oh, this is barbaric. So these laws are unfair and unjust. They do not realize that by making that statement, what they are saying, that Islam during its early stages was based on barbarism and unjust and unfair laws. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that Allah was zalim at that time. And we would like to bring the Islam which is, fair and based on justice. The issue is first define what is justice. Because you have your own idea of what is justice, because you are looking at the current, trends. Whatever is not acceptable by the Western values, you would say, okay, we discard this ayat of Quran. No more applicable. Whereas you have to really, work on this issue and try to explain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Khaliq, He is the creator, He knows the nature of the human being, and He has provided the guidance till the end of this dunya. Salawat. I don't have time to give you examples about it, but they will see there are many things. We don't accept it that easily, although we know this is a hadith of Rasulullah, but then later on, in the 21st century, or some investigation done by the scientists or psychologists in the West came to the same conclusion, then we say, oh, mashallah. You should have said mashallah before. You as Muslim scientists and psychologists should have studied that as a team to see what did Rasulullah say. Just one example. It's Shab. I don't want to worry about time. When we look at the hadith about tarbiyat, upbringing of children, Rasulullah, 1400 years ago, talking to the people who were illiterate, Bedouins mostly, he talks about the stages of tarbiyat of a child. And he says, when you raise your child for the first 7 years, your child is the master. The next 7 years is the slave. And the third 7 years, he is the minister. There was no, today psychology magazine for people to study psychology. Rasulullah is talking to illiterate people, simple people, using the context of that society, that for the first 7 years, a child is master, let the child be a child. You don't need to give, formal instructions. Tarbiyat is even necessary, even at that time. But you have to basically give the tarbiyat in the first 7 years by your own example. The child learns to speak from the language of the parents. The child learns the attitude from those who are around. That is where tarbiyat starts. Then he says from the next 7 years, the roles are reversed. Now the child is a slave. It doesn't mean you go and save your child. You know, somebody came to that question to me, oh, it doesn't mean I can save my son. Come on. Rasulullah is using these words symbolically. That's why I make sure people don't have those extreme ideas there. What he meant is that this is the time you have to be strict. In formal education and everything. And after 15 to 21, the child is a wazir. He is the minister, you are the king. King doesn't go around, ordering the ministers. Minister is there for him to, consult them, listen to their opinion, and then they come to a conclusion. So your attitude now has to be different when you talk to your child. After 21, your responsibility is over. Now we had this hadith for centuries. Only about 15 years ago, I looked at a study done by Sweden and Norway. The school system there starts from the age 7. Before age 7, they don't have formal school. They have, daycare and whatever. And there also, they focus more on character building of the child. It's only from the age 7 that they have formal education. And if you look at their marks, especially the high school students of that area, Northern Europe, they are highest on a global, chart that they have for this. And this is where you come to realize that, the modern world, after all the struggles and the experiments, they come to the same conclusion that Rasulullah had mentioned 400 years ago.